Okay, I'm hanging
And
up.
we're up. Okay, I've hung up. I did hang up. Okay. And we are up in 2-1. Hey, everybody. AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It's a joy to be with you. We're talking about education. We're also going to get a little bit into these food aid benefits that are going to get cut because you have a lot of kids at college who are hungry. There's a lot, or they're facing hunger. And so we need to talk about what's happening now that affirmative action has been taken off the table. Um, Howard and North Carolina A&T and these other black colleges, well, they actually have more in their undergraduate freshman classes or in their undergraduate student bodies than all of these Ivies combined with black students. That having been said, we've seen a real drop off in black admissions to the Ivy League schools. So, what's the deal, everybody? What's the deal? I mean, I saw this from 2023 to 2025. AP did a survey of 20 colleges, and black enrollment has dropped precipitously. Smith College is the only one of the Ivies, if you will, that did not see that drop. Columbia from 20% to 13% black enrollment. Harvard from 18% to 11.5%. Princeton 9% to 5%. In fact, I was reading an article, the AP article, and one of the students, black students at Princeton said, ordinarily when we have the freshman intake, the room is full. It was half full this year. No one's there. So, what is the impact of ending affirmative action, and how does it impact your later life? Think about that, everybody. This is a big, big deal. And so I said, let me speak with someone who went to one of the Ivies. This is where, of course, she went to MIT and got her PhD there in economics. But she's also been the president of Black College, Bennett College for Women. And so I think you have a very interesting perspective. You are, of course, the chair of Push Excel, the Push for Excellence program. You've always been pushing for education for our children. And I mean, when I looked at the numbers at Columbia University, this drop from 20% to 13%, from Harvard, 18% to 11.5%. Wait a minute, Caltech, you know that, 5% to 1.6%. Wow. I mean, this is big. So talk to me, Dr. Malvo. What does that say to you when you're watching more and more black kids not get into the Ivies? And we've seen an uptick in Asian kids getting into Ivies. We've not seen white kids fall off. We've seen some droppage with Latinos, but with black people, it's been a precipitous drop. What does that say to you?
Well, this anti-DEI movement is really an attack on Black people, and we know that. It's an attack on Black people in the workplace, it's an attack on Black people in the corporate space, and of course, it's an attack on Black people in education. This man who lives in the house that enslaved people built has come vociferously after Black folks, using murky language about qualifications. We know that all these young people are qualified. We look at their transcripts, we look at what they're doing, and they're qualified. But basically, many universities who have had affirmative action and other programs are frightened of this president. And so they are very sensitive to the fact that they might be sued, sensitive to the fact that there's some challenges. And so many of them have pulled back. So there are three reasons, I think, why we're seeing this phenomenon. Number one, of course, is this whole anti DEI movement combined with the Trumpian threats. And these have been threats, and many of the universities have responded to these threats. In some cases, they've said you must get rid of DEI or you must get rid of affirmative action.
Or
So,
what? What are the consequences if they don't get rid of
well,
DEI?
they've threatened lawsuits. They've threatened lawsuits. They've threatened all kinds of things. Some they've offered incentives to colleges to say if you don't do this, we'll give you that. Now, most of the Ivies have rebuffed those advances but they're also quietly careful, and they're willing to support these universities who don't do DEI anymore. Now, we can't make DEI the boogeyman. As I said, most of these young people are extremely qualified. When you look at the top 10% of any high school set of graduates, they're all qualified. So then, how do you pick? Diversity was one of the ways that you picked. There were other ways you picked, but diversity is one of the ways that you picked. But
Can you go through that process? What I mean, because obviously, as a college president, um, and having gotten into these top tier schools like you have, I have, you write essays. I mean, your test scores are one.
one of
That's
several
just one
measures.
of several measures. Would you explain to people what gets you into these schools? What are the considerations?
Geographic, for one thing. For example, in some places they want to have a geographical diversity. In other
Why?
words, you want to have some folks on the West Coast from the East Coast. Geographic. Talents. Are you a band member? Are you unique talents? Um, yeah, of course, your grades and your scores matter, but there are other things that matter. And other things, often, especially for white kids, guess what matters?
What?
Legacy status. Did your
Isn't
mama
that
or
like 40% of
Yeah. Did
the,
your mama or your daddy go to this school? And if so, you've got a leg up. So many of our parents did not go to that school. So you don't have that leg up. But the admissions algorithm is not just grades and scores. There are many things that are considered when you're dealing with who you admit and you don't admit. And as I said, if you look at the top 10% of any high school graduates, you'll find that all those young people qualified for Ivies. All of them are not going to get in because they're that much space. So they start making strategic decisions. And as I said, grades and scores are one thing, but other considerations, geographical diversity, legacy status, affirmative action are others. So if you take two people, you look at them side by side, and they look the same, then you say, well, now what about this person is outstanding? You're looking at the quality of essays. You're looking at any did they win a band scholarship? Did they there's just a bunch of other things. You're constructing a freshman class. You're constructing that class with various diversity and other considerations. Um, some schools actually now, Santita, and it's kind of funny, make allowances for homeschool students. So students who have been homeschooled, so they don't show up in the typical grades and scores. They'll show up in the scores, not less so the grades, but the fact that they're homeschooled and they send a kick-ass essay may give them a leg up. Their community service may give them a leg up. There's just a plethora of things. So this whole notion of we're just going to go by scores or we're just going to go by grades ignores the secret sauce that admissions officers put together. So, but right now the secret sauce is anti-black. So somebody who might have got a leg up because they were leader of the student Black Lives Matter chapter now is not going to get that because that's leadership. But wait a minute, Black Lives Matter? I don't know if we want to do that. So that's one of the, they college admissions.
So wait a minute, let me ask you this. So if you talk about your race in one of these essays, because I don't know if people know that even for the undergraduate programs, I mean, like for Harvard and Yale, I had to write several essays, several. And
Yes.
it's like, how many ways am I going to say this? But they want to, I guess, see how many ways you're going to say it. And are you saying that now that there's no DEI, there's no affirmative action? I have a friend who has a big business, a big contract, right? And she was told that she's on the chopping block because she's a Black woman. She was just
Mhm.
told this, right? And she said, so as I rewrite my papers so that I can re-up with this company, I've got to be careful not to mention race at all. Are you saying that that is now the case for undergraduate admissions to an Ivy.
Yes, I'm saying that the Ivies are, they've been put on notice by this administration that they're not supposed to pay attention to race. So if you had been like, as again, let's say a Black Lives Matter student leader, that might be something best left out. You're having to censor yourself in so many ways. So one of the things is the anti-DEI, which basically shows up in admissions. The other thing that I think is happening um, is not admission; it's also financial aid, because many young people, especially if they're from the lower income distribution, they need financial aid. Will this be held against them in the granting of financial aid? I don't know the answer to that, but I would guess that it is. But the third thing that's interesting, Santita, is a number of young people who are choosing not to even apply to these Ivies. Young people do not want to be placed in, even though there are many advantages to going to an Ivy, especially the networking possibilities in the
Yeah,
future.
yeah.
There are also many downsides, and many young people are like, I'm not going into a hostile environment. So you mentioned A&T, Howard, others, their applications are up. Our excellent young people are saying, well, I just go to an HBCU. And it's
But you
not
know
like,
what, Dr. Malvo, you know what was interesting? I was at one of my dearest friend's wedding a couple of years ago, and I was talking to another, one of my classmates, and he and I got into Howard under the National Competitive Scholarship, and we'd done very well, right? Great scores and all of that. And it's a full 4-year ride to Howard. And what we had noticed then, and this is in the early 80s, that we were like leading we were part of a group who had decided to go back to HBCUs.
mhm,
Because I think in the mid to late 60s and 60s and 70s, you all were going to these big white schools. My father went there, you did, and all of that. And he said, haven't you noticed that we were like part of that first wave? Because everybody in who had gotten that scholarship, Dr. Malvo, had turned down an Ivy. Just about
mhm,
everybody turned down an Ivy to go to Howard. And it was very interesting that when Dr. Mary Frances Berry asked my mother where I was going to school, and she said, Howard. She said, thank God. And my mother said, really? She said, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, that she, my father said, look, you can get a social/academic or an academic/social experience. He
mhm.
said, given the fact that you lock yourself away, I think you need a social/academic experience. Because you disappear, you do your work, and we don't see you in the house. He said, I don't want you to do that for 4 years. I don't want that. You need more than that. But she said, in terms of your dating, because I had a woman on my show who went to Northwestern, and she was talking to juniors, Dr. Malvo, junior Black women who had
Mhm.
not had a date for 3 years, for example. So, I mean, socially, I mean, there's just a lot.
There's a lot that goes into it. I mean, I wish, well, I was admitted to Howard, but you know my story. I was a high school put out. So I never,
She came out of high school like Miss Flackett, too. So there's that.
so basically, Howard admitted me, gave me a little money, not enough, but some, but then kept saying, where's your high school diploma? Well, I have one. So I kept writing back, I don't have one. And so finally, my mom said, you need to go to one of these white schools because they don't care.
And they'll
How,
pay you. And
yeah, I
they'll
had a
pay
full
you.
ride at Boston College, and I didn't have a high school diploma. But I really regret to this day, and it's 50 years later, that I didn't go to Howard, because white people taught me how to fight. At white campuses, you constantly, what I always said to young people at Bennett, at a HBCU, we're going to assume that you're smart until you prove that you're not. And
Mm.
some of our young people will prove that they're not. They don't go to class. Every day is a party. But we assume you're smart until you prove you're not. At a white school, they assume you're not smart until you prove that you are. So you're constantly having to prove yourself. So in Boston College freshman year, I was accused of plagiarism from by the person who was sitting behind me. Like I had eyes in the back of my head. I was accused of
Unbelievable.
plagiarism. My mama wrote about a 10-page letter. She was worse than me. You know, we're voluble. We don't know when to stop. 10-page letter. When did my daughter become dumb? You admitted her, blah, 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 blah. Finally, the resolution was that the dean, I remember his name, Richard Hughes, he asked me, he said, I don't know how we can prove the professor wrong. I said, look at the girl's paper who was behind me. He didn't want to do all that. So I proposed a solution. I said, let me write um, an essay for you, and you judge whether I can write or not. So I said, what would you like me to write about? He said, whatever you want. So unfortunately, you know, my evil humor, I wrote about the correlation between short white men and small genitalia and big
Oh,
dogs.
really?
And the man said, Miss Malvo, I'll concede that you can write. He said, but you have a nasty sense of humor. I'm like, but did
Oh,
I write the issue is, did I write my essay? And he said, you probably did.
no, oh, you wrote that.
You know. So the woman who was she was an instructor from Harvard, and she
Mhm.
had some of the freshman English. They let her finish the semester, but then they fired her, which is what should happen, and which is what my mama demanded. She said, this woman, because I mean, I cried me a river. I had never seen an F in my life. The woman put an F on my paper and said that I had copied from the woman who was sitting behind me. But that is the assumption, or at least then, of PWIs, that you are dumb until you prove that you're not. Whereas at HBCU, it's the opposite. An HBCU experience is a nurturing experience, and a
Mhm.
lot of young Black people say, forget the networking. I can do my networking. I want to get out of college." And I could tell you stories both from my Bennett experience and from other experiences, from my Boston College experience, from from my MIT experience. I can tell you stories about how the racial bias of white faculty basically scars the experiences of Black students. I had a young lady, I was hired at Bennett and was excited to be there, and there was a big publicity, blah, 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 blah. Um, a young woman from one of those North Carolina colleges, I think it was University of North Carolina, reached out to
Chapel Hill.
yeah, and
Yeah.
said she wanted to be an econ major. She was a senior with a 4.0 GPA. She said, could she come see me? I said, well, there are a lot of professors there. I said, I'm happy to talk to you, but what's going on? She did not have a mentor in her senior year. She did not have one faculty member who had reached out to her. I happened to know a white woman who had also gone to MIT about the same time I did. And I said, let me call her. So I called her, and, you know, we did the chitty chat. And I said, there's a young woman in one of your classes, and she seems to be quite bright. I said, do you know her? She I she said no. I said, she's in one of your classes. I said, she's probably the only Black student in your class. She said, well, I always invite my top students to my house for tea. I said, well, did you invite her? She said, I don't think so. I said, well, is there a reason? And she said, well, she probably just didn't stand out. I said, but if she's got a 4 point in your class, why did she not stand out? And she, of course, immediately mouthed it. And then she said, oh, I guess I didn't think about it. She said, maybe I should reach out to her. I said, yeah, think. And she did reach out, and they did develop a relationship. But this was like in the second semester of this young lady's senior year. It would have made a big difference if she had been mentored, embraced earlier. She did not have a B on her transcript. She sent it to me. She had had 2 classes with this white woman, economist, who just never thought in her mind to reach out to this girl. Meanwhile, she, of course, had a little coterie of about 10 young women who were econ majors who she had nurtured. This girl missed the nurturing. This is why some of our young people decide, I'd rather go to an HBCU. So, on one hand, you have the demand part of our young people wanting to go to those PWIs, but on the other hand, you have the supply part. Some of them are saying, I'm not having it. I'm just not having it.
Well, let me ask you this, because I came across this article. I mean, do you think that Howard University, among HBCUs, this is from Forbes, with more Black students than all eight Ivy League schools uh, combined. I mean, what is it? North Carolina A&T, which is the largest Black college, Black university in the country. I mean, I think they have more than 15,000 students. Ooh,
It's a huge university
it's
that does
huge.
amazing work. Let's be clear. That does amazing work, heavy in the sciences,
Yeah,
as is
they
Howard,
do.
but also in literature, in the A&T is an amazing university. I used to always call it the little school across the street because they're across the street from Bennett. I just did that to mess with them. Um, we're like a tenth of their size, but just to mess with them. Oh, the little school across the street. But they do phenomenal work, and their chancellor Harold Martin just stepped down, got a new guy in. Why do so many Black students flock there? Because like Howard, it's a mecca. We call Howard the Mecca. It's a place where you just historically we see so much in terms of our scholars, in terms of our bands, in terms of our libraries, the Moreland Spingarn
It's the
library.
culture.
Yeah,
It's the culture. I was with a friend of mine who had gone to an Ivy. We went to see Luther Vandross. This is when we were in undergrad, and it was several of my classmates from Howard. It was Jesse and Johnny, so lots of their friends from A&T, and we were all just laughing, having a great time. It was about girl. It was about 15, 20 of us talking and just laughing all night. And she leaned over to me and she said, I had forgotten that there were this many smart, funny Black people in the world. I
yeah.
said, wow. I said,
Because you don't get that at a
oh,
PWI. You really don't. I mean, you get it when like of course, we had a culture and energy at Boston College, but that's because we created it. But we have to
mhm.
create it at a place like Howard. It's already there. Your mama went there, your cousin went there. People know, people hang. I mean, Howard Homecoming just ended.
I
It
know I couldn't be there. Oh,
Well, honey, they took up over the streets of DC. I
of
live off the
course.
street, and I think was it Saturday or Friday where I saw these little sisters with their Howard, t-shirts and just doing their thing. They were dancing down the street. I'm like, oh yeah,
Yeah. Oh,
they were
absolutely.
having a good old time, and so. As your parents said, I mean, part of the undergraduate experience, of course, is the academics, and it should be the main part, but it should not be the only part. I mean, it should not be the only part. The social environment, the networking, all of that, the sorority, fraternity experience,
Well, you're
all that.
growing,
And
you know,
my heart breaks for these young sisters who, as you mentioned, go through 4 years without a date. You
and
know,
not the guys, not the
oh well,
guys.
but please
It's
don't
no,
get me
no,
started.
because they're dating interracially. I don't have a problem with that. But a lot of these that means a lot of these Black girls are coming up short. But
But
let
it's
me
not
ask
only that
you.
they're dating interracially. If you're at a place
Mhm.
like Greensboro, North Carolina, where there's 7 colleges, what I used to crack up, I said the guy has a girl. I used to tell the young ladies who were in love, I'm like, he got a girlfriend at Bennett. He got one at A&T. He got one at the University of North Carolina at Greensboro. He got one at High Point University. And well, we know what the ratios are, but the brothers roam free. The women are more constrained for any number of reasons. And it's not
Well,
just about dating interracially, it's just also about what the dynamics are and which sisters are prepared to step outside the race, but also not step outside the race who don't have constraints. Who don't have, some young people, their parents have put constraints on them, others don't. Do they have cars? More guys undergrad have cars than the women do. So if
but
you have a
then,
car, you can move around.
but
But
then, but then, let me ask you: in this environment, when affirmative action has been slashed, DEI, okay, you can't mention even as you walk in the room, I'm Black, even though that's so obvious that that's what I am. That's what you are. That's what we are. What what do you tell these students? I mean, do you encourage them? Well, I think you encourage people to apply to wherever it is that they want to go. But a lot of these kids, if they don't get into an Ivy League institution even today, that is that is a decision. I mean, that is something that shapes their life, and they feel that they've come up short.
Well, they have to get over that because, quite frankly, the Ivies represent, I don't know, 3-4% of all undergraduate admissions. What tell young people to do are three things. Number one, create a community where you are. In other words, if you're going to, and a lot of our young people now are going more frequently going to state institutions, find a Black community, find your church, find your tribe, because you need a tribe. So that's
Mhm.
number one, is just create community, find community, build community. Number two is your studies come first. And that should have been the first piece of advice. Your studies come first,
Mhm.
but there are other things you can do. So number three, join, build, belong to organizations. Um, even the most white institutions sometimes have a Black student union, Black collective, whatever.
Do they still have those now?
They do.
Okay.
They're not supported financially by the universities like they were even 10 years ago, but they are there. So deal with that. Also, keep your roots at home. If the place is unfriendly, but you are determined to finish, and don't be dropping out. Don't drop out because you're uncomfortable, because life is uncomfortable. So if you get there, you're thriving academically, not so much socially, figure it out. Go home once a month or once a quarter where you have roots and talk to your parents and other people. Try to connect with Black alums to share with them what their stories are. The Ivies are a good deal if you get in and you have good financial aid. There are lots of doors that will open you because you went to an Ivy, but everyone is not going to go to an Ivy. Your life is not over because you didn't go to an Ivy. And then number four, if you finish 2 years at, let's say, Iowa State, and you do very well, you might be able to transfer to an Ivy because increasingly young people and parents are saying, this is going to be 60 grand a year. It's not worth it. I'm going to go to, a lot of folks go to community colleges for 2 years and then transfer to a 4 year. And some of those 4 years are going to be Ivies. So have a plan A, B, C, D, and E. And if your dream is an Ivy, look at, as soon as you hit the campus you're at, look at what it requires for you to get to transfer to an Ivy, which means look at what classes you need to take so you can transfer seamlessly. In other words, you can whatever, but there's some English classes at Iowa State. I want to pick on them, but use them as an example, that will also transfer with credit to Harvard. There are some other classes that won't. So if your goal is an Ivy, be strategic. Look at what they require, look at what you're doing, and see what you can do to transfer. But I'll tell you, while the Ivies are a good deal for any number of reasons, mainly the networking, because the quality at the level of freshman classes, frankly, the quality of education doesn't vary whether it's an Ivy or a state university. You're
My
taking
father told me that.
you're taking
He-
basic English, you're taking, you know, if basic science, you're taking
Wait a minute,
political.
you're using the same books
Yeah,
because Howard's lines were so long. I would go over. Yes, I went over to George Washington because they had no lines. I would buy my books over there because it was just too easy. No, because I could just walk in. I bought my books and then I was out the door.
yeah.
Right. I mean, and so, but wait a minute. Shouldn't you also look at a school to see what they offer you? I mean, like, okay, like when you're going to law school. If I wanted to be a litigator, Harvard Law School would not be my first choice
No.
because that's not what they do. They do corporate law, right? Yale does more litigators, but UT Austin, that's a great litigating school. North Carolina, Central. You mean
Oh yeah, that's a great school.
that? So I'm just saying, do we not now? Because now the Ivies, it's more than 8 schools now. Now, you know this as an educator, they've expanded that. Now, University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. I mean, there are so many other places. University of Wisconsin at Madison. I mean, they've expanded the tent on what an Ivy is now.
And so young people need to be aware of why they're going, where they're going, what they're looking for. It's not enough to just say I went to Yale. Or I went to Harvard, or I went to Howard. Why did you go there? What does it do? But young people, they're 18, they're 19, undergraduates, they're not necessarily looking at their long life trajectory, nor should they necessarily, but they should at some point look at what is this school going to do for me? I'm
Hmm.
going to be paying all this money. I'm going to be going to all this debt because and even if you get a full ride, you're going to go into some debt because there are things you're going to need other than just tuition, cost of attendance. So look at why am I here? What has impelled me to go here? I mean, we're in a whole new, everything has been upended. And I'm not going to give that man who lives in the house that enslaved people built all that credit. It's not just him. It's a restructuring of our society. It is the oligarchy. And I believe that for many of these people, the temp was made too big. Too
Hmm.
many people that they did not want to deal with are now in positions. When you look at the people that man has gone after, look at a James, look at a Lisa Cook, look at some of these Black women that he's gone after. These are people who, many of them competed toe to toe, and many of them didn't. Spelman is as good as Wellesley is. One of the quote seven sister schools. Spelman is
Hmm.
as good, if not better than that. But I want young people to be very thoughtful about their educational choices, thoughtful about why they're at what school, for what reason. And that will dispel some of the myth of superiority. If you can go to and look at some of the, I mean, the Trumpies, they're not excellently educated. I mean,
But and they went to
maybe
the
some of them didn't
Ivy.
even go to school at all. And the man said he likes people who are not educated.
No, but he made sure his children went to the
Oh,
top
oh yeah.
schools. And but even his son-in-law, and I'm not picking at anyone, but to your point uh, about those who are legacies, but his parents gave the school Harvard a lot of money, and he was admitted. But even the teachers at his school in New Jersey said, no, he does not deserve to go here. We know some other people who can meet the academic rigors far better than he. And, no one talks about that.
No.
I mean, no one talks about 40% of Howard's admittees are legacy. No one says that. No one talks about the gap years that they get because many of them come out of high school not quite up to snuff, Dr.
Mm-hmm.
Malvo, right? And
Absolutely.
so they get an extra year, not just to get themselves together socially, but academically to get up to snuff. No one talks about that.
Many of them they do the fifth year. They call it the fifth year, transition year. Um, yeah, many of them do that. And again, if you look at the lower range of the income distribution, many of our kids can't afford to do that.
Mm.
Mama and daddy say, okay, you did your high school, get your butt out of my house and go to college, because they can't afford to pay for a fifth year. And there are very few fifth year scholarships. So that's a parental expense that those who have the money take care of. But back to, when we're looking at these IVs and the plummeting admissions, it's really about the narrowing of opportunity.
Okay.
Um, and that's what we really need to focus on, is how opportunities under this administration have narrowed as
For Black people
yes, for Black people. But even
specific.
the opportunity to eat has
Hmm.
narrowed. When you look at
Hmm.
what's happening at the end of this week, SNAP
And
uh,
WIC.
will be gone. WIC, SNAPs, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, used to
Wait a
be
minute,
called.
wait a minute. Can I add something to that? Because I'd like for you to take that apart. I need you to unpack that. because now we're watching birth rates plummet. There's a McKinsey report that's talking about that. We're looking at birth rates plummeting. Um, the pathways to an education are narrowing, whether it's academic or vocational, quite frankly.
Yes.
I mean, it's everything is the pathways are contracting on us, Dr. Malvo. I mean, what are we to read into this? Because there are fewer and fewer slots for more and more people.
Mm-hmm.
What does that say? I mean, when WIC and SNAP, you know, the administration is purposefully the Department of Education, the Department of Agriculture is mandated to open the contingency fund to release those resources so that people can get their WIC and SNAP and their food benefits. They're refusing to do that. How does that happen, Dr. Malvo?
Well,
I mean,
this administration has, just read Project 2025. They said what they were going to do, but the long-term socio-economic implications is more people who are dependent on or are having their benefits taken away. What happens if you can't eat? What do you end up doing? You end up working for less money. We have not raised the minimum wage in over 10 years. You're working for less money, but you must eat, you must have housing. So what you end up doing is essentially lowballing yourself. You work for less than you might have worked for because you have to have something. You have to eat, you have to feed your family. You might end up with a situation where you have more family members working, but paying lower wages. You're setting up a system of haves and have nots, but not the haves and have nots that we are accustomed to, but almost more rigid haves and have nots.
hmm.
So you're looking. I mean, reminds me of the Elizabethan poor laws. Now, of course, this was the 17th century, and I'm going way back. But in there, people basically, if you could not work, they put you in a warehouse. You had
Yeah,
to work, and that's where we kind of are. Um, we're not quite there yet. But when you have a president who says, "I'm going to cut Democrat programs," I'm going to cut Democrat programs. What are Democrat programs with the size of our federal government? Well, we already know they've cut the arts, they've cut education, but are these Democrat programs? I mean, they've cut the nuclear oversight. That's not a Democrat program. That's a national program.
but what is that about, Dr. Malvo? I
It's
mean,
revenge. It's hatred. It's revenge. It's hatred, and it's also you make this point often, and I've begun to quote you on it frequently. There's also about it's we lose energy when we focus on Trump. We need to focus on the structure. It's not just Trump. It's what does he stand for, and he stands for the return of empire. He stands for oligarchy. He stands for big us on the top and little y'all on the bottom. And we're seeing that increasingly. We're seeing unaffordability uh, on any number of things. Inflate. This man campaigned on, I'm going to fix the economy. But inflation is up. Unemployment is up. Only a little bit, but it is up. 300,000 plus Black women have lost their jobs. Many of these women, DC and Prince George's County, many of these women had good government jobs, good government jobs. And now, what does that mean? Can they pay their mortgage for how many
no.
months without a job? And so basically, this is an administration that is consigning a large percentage of the population into penury, just
Mhm.
into poverty and penury without a clear way out. It used to be that you would say to people, if you work hard, you'll get ahead. Well, there are a whole lot of hardworking people aren't getting ahead. And, we talked offline, and I want to just promote my show for a quick second.
Always.
WBFM.org, 9 o'clock Eastern tomorrow morning. I'll be talking to John Boyd, who is the founder of the Black Farmers Association. And we talked briefly about how small farms are being wiped out. oligarchs are buying them, and many farmers who've had these farms in their families for decades, some as going all the way back to the 19th century when Black people were buying land after enslavement,
Mhm.
and some of these folks are killing themselves.
But no. It's an epidemic now. It's an epidemic. I sent you an article or two. I can send you many others. It's an epidemic of farmers killing themselves all over the country. It was part of 2025, Project 2025, to drive out family farmers and to promote corporate farmers,
Corporate
big
farming, yes.
farmers. So, I mean, so that's why I was saying it's beyond a person. This is a system where we're being surveilled, Dr. Malvo. Um, you can't have access to cash. If you try to spend cash somewhere, people look at you like you're crazy, and
Oh
they
yeah,
automatically assume.
cash is out.
No,
There are
but
so
you
many
know what?
places that you can't even use cash. I went to a place the other day that was funny, um, just to get an ice cream cone, and I had the thing was $8.07, and which was very expensive ice cream, but that's another story. I had $8 and I had a credit card. No, I didn't have my credit card. I had put $8 in my pocket. I was walking the neighborhood. I said, I'll go down there and get me an ice cream cone. Well, all I had was the $8. I didn't have the 7 cents. And the guy and I went into a big back and forth. And then this guy standing behind me said, let me just buy that for you. Um, and I said, well, I just need 7 cents. He said, no, I'm going to buy that for you. Then he went on into a rant, which was funny, about this is ridiculous. If it's $8.07, just take the woman's $8. What's wrong with you? Blah, 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 blah. But he said he also thought that they should have, you shouldn't have to have a credit card to buy ice cream cone. Um,
Come on.
and the guy with the little, it wasn't his fault. He worked there, and he said, well, it's $8.07, and if you don't have the money, then you can't have the cone. And I'm like, I just told the dude, I said, look at me. I'm already overweight. I don't need that ice cream. Let me get up out of here. But the
Not
kind,
overweight. Don't get out.
I can stand to lose a few pounds.
No,
I
you
did
couldn't.
not need that double, what is it, triple cream ice cream. I did not need that.
Yeah, you
But
did because it was soothing. So enough.
it was, and the fellow he was very kind. He followed me out of there and was still hollering and screaming when I got to my block. I said, baby, this is my block. Thank you so much. Take care. Um, but but the
But
cash is like you can't have cash. And
but I
I
mean, but Dr. Malvo, there's something going on here. Now hold on. You're an economist. You step back and you look at patterns. You study how we behave, how we spend, how the system works on a micro and macro level. That's what you do. One of the things that you do. You're also a brilliant social critic. You do that. And social analyst and political analyst. It seems like the whole system is being unplugged, Dr. Malvo. How do you look 42 million Americans in the eye and say, I'm not going to fund your your food supply? I mean, I was looking at this and taking SNAP out of suspending SNAP takes $9 billion out of the economy immediately. So you're going to see grocery stores close if they keep on going with this. You will have barren shelves. Cashiers are not working, and they're already trying to computerize everything anyway. I mean, who does this? They're unplugging everything that people use, that are used by people, that need people to operate. I mean, we have I saw something on the news and they were talking about driverless cars. I'm like, not the kid. I don't want to be in a driverless car.
no driverless. No, no, no. That's dangerous as far as I'm concerned. But what? What? Let's start with this shutdown and what it's doing. It's taking like $15 billion a week out of the economy. Now, my number may be a little
Yeah.
off, but we're taking money out of the economy. Um, if I did not know any better, I would think that this president was a Russian agent and that his job is to crush the world as we know it, but the economy as we know it, and people as we know the ways that people have developed pathways to survival. If I didn't know any better.
But see,
And
I put it. It's to me, it's not even Russia because Russia doesn't have the control over us that other places do. I think this is bigger. You've got a new world order that people have been talking about. What is going on here? Because we're being unplugged. We are in the United States of I remember you said something. We were in Detroit at one of our automotive summits, and I thought it was such a brilliant observation. You said Detroit didn't collapse, Detroit was collapsed.
yeah,
America has not collapsed, it's being collapsed. To what end? Because Russia wouldn't be the big beneficiary.
no,
No, I mean
predatory,
the big
predatory capitalists of the United States, global predatory capitalists are the ones who gain from this.
because
Global predatory
because
capitalists,
they have no allegiance to the United States.
exactly.
I mean they don't have they have global allegiance. They don't have a national allegiance. So that's why I can't like even the Russia hoax. I always knew that that was not true. That to me there's so much more going on here. And in the meantime, this as of Friday, people are not going to have any food, Dr. Malvo.
Yeah, and people, and you know what happens when see this goes together. So you got this administration who their big thing is crime. You're invading cities because of crime. You're in D.C. because crime is out of control, which it isn't. You're invading Chicago, or well, they got pushed back. Now they want to go to San Francisco, Portland, Oregon, and they're talking about crime. Okay, so what happens when people don't eat? They steal. I mean, if people don't eat, I mean, and the stealing. So you're now feeding the prison industrial complex
Hmm.
because in some places, like California, it's 3 strikes, and then you're going to jail, even if it's a minor offense, a misdemeanor. You stole a loaf of bread.
Mm-hmm.
Got hungry the next week. You stole another loaf of bread. Well, if you got arrested both times, you got one more time to steal a loaf of bread, and you're up under the jail. But who benefits from that? The prison industrial complex. You
And
put
employers who use it, right?
exactly, and many employers do use it. So that's what we're looking at. We're looking at a system that's being reordered essentially to serve the oligarchs.
Well, my question then for you, and what did you say, Robert Williams? Oh, those Epstein files. Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot that's going on here, and I have to tell you, it's like a bipartisan betrayal. Please,
Oh, yeah,
this is not about a party. This is about the oligarchs who are Democrat, Republican, and it and independent, and then no affiliation at all because they're transactional. Believe me, all the people who are around President Trump right now, with a few exceptions, would have been all over Kamala because that's how power works. Because everybody's got to relate to the elected official. That's how it is. My question is, having said that, how do people win, Dr. Malvo? I only have about 5 or 6 minutes left here. Please go to town. And of course, you're on WPFW. Please, at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, that's 8 a.m. Central Standard Time, as soon as I get off the air, please go on over to her show on Tuesday morning. Well, no, on Monday morning, tomorrow morning,
I'm under
because
yes.
you're talking about the farmers, our farmers. They are in crisis. We're not hearing enough about their crises. Their crisis. They're dying. And I mean, we're about to get 40. We've signed up to, should Malay win the election, he will get 20 billion, maybe 40 billion from us. It will only cost $9 billion to feed these people for Wick and Snap. Come on, Dr. Melville, what is this?
This is an attempt to starve people into subservience. It's
Mm.
an attempt to make people feel so insecure, so hungry that they'll do virtually anything to stay alive. And we're seeing some of it already. And we'll see more and more of it as people essentially choose to basically choose to acquiesce. We've already seen it with law firms uh, paying money into whatever his coffers. We've seen it with some universities, um, again, acquiescing. We've seen it all over, literally in all kind of silos. You've seen the acquiescence, and people are frightened. I tell you, Santita, people are frightened. I talked
Mhm.
to uh, elected officials off the record, and this one woman said to me, "I'm just not saying anything." I said, "Well, you were elected to say something." She says, "Well, I just need to be under the radar." She has some issues, and she's frightened that they may find about her issues and then put it out there. And I'm like, "They're your issues, own them." You know. But anyway, people are acquiescing because they're afraid. We've never seen this kind of fear in our country since the McCarthy era. We have, I
But
mean,
but
we
but think about it. The McCarthy era was just as the coming out of the Second World War, as we were really moving toward um, as the civil rights and just the human rights movement was bursting forth in the United States. And it
yes,
seems to me that, as Americans wake up, as people wake up, then you have the oligarchs pressing down. And I think that's what we're watching right now, right? Just as people are waking up and as people are getting uncomfortable, look, they said 7 million people were at the No Kings protest. There were
there were
infinitely
probably
more
a
people.
lot more. There were probably a lot
Absolutely.
more. And but the other thing about the No Kings is the level of, I didn't go out there because I'm too old. Um, one of my young people told me that it was, the streets were, sidewalk to sidewalk, and sometimes I walk with a cane. So my godchild said, he said, "You don't need to be out here. Somebody will bump into you, you'll fall down, and I can't deal with that." And so I watched a lot of it from home. WPFW had a reporter out there. Matthew Brown, my godchild, was reporting for AP. There were a number of folks who were out there, and what everyone who was there says to me, the level of exuberance and connection was really powerful. That people were really connecting, talking. I saw a picture. One of my reporters sent a picture of a four-generation family: great
Mm.
grandma, grandma, ma, and kids. And it was about 10 of them, and they were holding hands and they were having a great old time. And but this response by this president is to have a meme of a airplane spilling feces on people.
Oh my
This
Lord.
is what he thinks. This is what he thinks of the electorate. You know,
But wait a minute, and that's his team. Because
yes, yes,
remember, because his team have threatened Americans. Let's be
yes.
very clear. It's the team, because it's not just one person. If you think this 80-year-old man is sitting around
Mm,
making cartoons and tweeting, no, you have a social media team. And what's amazing is unkind, how unkind they are. That's
yes.
what that to me is, after I've seen it all, Dr. Malvo. It's the unkindness.
No,
You
and the
know,
rhetoric is unkind. That little
oh yeah,
Carolina Leavitt, the press secretary, she's
Levitt.
we've not
She's
really
she's
very rarely seen press secretaries that combative. She's come to the game to pick a fight.
yeah, but it's mean. It's
Yeah.
mean.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, and your point is what? You're unkind. I don't understand that. Just hello, how you doing? And it's a fight, really? No, no. Dr. Malvo, what are you going to be talking about on your show before we go? Help us to understand why you're looking at farmers right now. Why?
Well, first of all, farmers have been hard hit by these tariffs. All farmers, not black farmers, but all farmers have been hit by these tariffs. Midwest, as you know, soybeans, big thing. But now some countries are buying from China as opposed to from us because of the whole tariff situation. So I
Hmm.
want to talk to this brother who's done great work with black farmers. He's the
Hmm.
one who basically brought the lawsuits against the Department of Agriculture. I want to talk to him about what's going on with black farmers. And then Dr. Dominique, okay, the girl's last name is escaping me, and she's my little
Hmm.
girl too. But anyway, Dr. Dominique is going to talk about how that connects to food policy, which
Mm.
that's SNAP and all that. What's going on with food policy? Have we ignored food policy? We have enough
What
money.
is food policy? What is that?
It's how people eat. Is what we do about distributing food, how we distribute food, who gets food. what food is marked down, what food we're stockpiling. We have food stockpiles. No one should ever go hungry in America. So talk to her about that. And so the combination is just to look at food and food policy, and quite frankly, and policy aggression. In other words, if the goal is to starve people out, how do you do it? You do it through public policy. So you don't have to
Is it
basically,
to make us desperate
yes,
and
it's to make us
acquiescent?
desperate and acquiescent. It's to basically beat people down to the
Okay.
point that they'll do anything for a meal.
But let me ask you this, because Americans, boy, I have a lot of faith in us because we're a different kind of group. We don't do monarchies here, really. That we don't
Well,
you know
technically we don't, but we already have.
no
The
we have the oligarchy, no question. But at some point we go, wait a minute. It's just in the DNA. At some point we go,
Well, I
wait.
hope you're right, Santita. I hope you're right.
I'm hoping.
Heretofore, well, it's only been a year. It's not even been a full year
It's
since.
not been a year. It's been
But,
10
but,
months.
but look what happened. What's happening this year? You got the East Wing knocked down. You've
Mm.
got agencies shut down. You've got people fired. You've got the Department of Education cut by more than almost half.
Well, that's about to be. They're about to shelve that. I mean, and so that for me that's what I'm saying. We're watching an unplugging. I mean,
But the
we're
question:
watching.
when does a pushback come? The No King rallies are fine, but they're rallies. When does that rally turn into public policy? When
Hmm.
does pushback come? Now, the first chance we really have to do big pushback is a 2026 election.
But wait. Do you know the historian Heather Cox Richardson?
Yes.
She pointed out that there are more than 52,000 elections between now and mid-November in 2025. You've got
Oh,
you've got court, you've got
yeah.
judges that are on the ballot. I mean, we have all kinds of elections over the next 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah. But
So let's,
Virginia, and New Jersey are big elections for governor. You got
but I
good.
mean, but they're happening all over the country. I mean,
Yeah.
Proposition 50 out there from your home state where they're looking at gerrymandering. I mean, there's a lot going on like right now. So I think people should pay attention to what's going on right now in 2025. Look, but the last minute belongs to you. Of course, WPFW every Monday, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's 8 a.m. Central Standard Time. Check out Dr. Malvo on WPFW.
Yeah,
WPFW.
WPFWFM.org.
It's Pacifica, isn't it?
Yes, it's Pacifica Ribbon,
Oh,
WPFWFM.org. If you go on that on your computer, you get right to me
right.
at 9 a.m. Eastern. In that last minute, I would just ask and implore people to wake up, everybody.
Mm.
Wake up, everybody. I mean, I know that a lot of people, I had a long conversation today with a friend who said she's overwhelmed by the amount of things that she has to do. Overwhelmed. I mean, she's, single mom, kids in college. One didn't get their financial aid. They're trying to figure it out. Yada, 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 yada. And she's like, I can't take on anything else. But my response is, you got to take on something else because we're taking on is your survival. You're taking on your life. If the Department of Education had not been cut, your child might have had their financial aid. Also, if you got your paperwork on time, but that's another story. Um, but you know, I just implore people, if you don't make but 10 minutes a day, make 10 minutes a day to do something to make sure this world is a better place. And in the words of the great, inestimable, your dad, keep hope alive. Keep hope
Amen to
alive.
that. Well, you're one of the great ones, certainly someone for whom I have tremendous respect and admiration and love. And thank you for all of your service. And you keep hope alive and keep on fighting the good fight.
Thank you, my sister. Appreciate you.
Sending you so much love, everybody. WPFWFM.org. Dr. Julianne Malveaux, of course. Check her out at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 8 a.m. Central Standard Time. You want to hear about the farmers. You want to hear about our food. And what we can do with these empty lots, we're going to have to talk about that one day. Getting the seeds, growing food. We're going to have to do that. And really, everybody, please just take care of yourselves and let's take care of each other. I love you.
Absolutely. Take
God
care.
bless you. Love you.